I call to order this regular meeting of the Mount Pleasant City Commission this Monday, September 12th, 2022 at 7 p.m. Please rise for the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice.
Clerk Bout, can you please take the roll?
Commissioner Alsager?
Here.
Commissioner Asman?
Here.
Commissioner Eke?
Here.
Commissioner Ronan is absent. Commissioner Bush?
Here.
Mayor Perschbacher?
Here.
We have a quorum.
All right. First, we'd like to acknowledge Vice Mayor Olivia Simon's resignation from the City Commission. And at this time, I will open up nominations for election of Vice Mayor.
I would like to nominate Commissioner Mary Alsager.
Do we have a second?
I second.
Are there any other nominations? Are there any other nominations? All right, at this time, we will take a vote. Is this by roll call or is this by hand raise? By hand raise, okay. All those in favor of appointing or electing Commissioner Alsager to the Vice Mayor position, please say yes.
Yes.
All those opposed, no. All right, welcome Commissioner Alsager to the Vice Mayor's position.
Thank you.
All right, at this time, we're going to move on to proclamations and presentations. The presentation first is going to be on the boil water advisory that was issued Thursday, September. Oh, I don't think it was September 1st, was it?
Mm-hmm.
Was it really?
Yes.
Wow. This month is going very quickly for me. All right, thank you.
All right.
Good evening, Commission. I'm Darcy Orlick, Director of Public Relations for our fine city. We'll take the next few minutes just to go over the communication plan that we put in place for the Boil Water Advisory, which was issued on Thursday, September 1st, and then later lifted on Sunday, September 4th. So this first slide will just quickly go down what we did, and then more in detail in the slides thereafter. And this is all for the issuing of the advisory and for the lifting, so I don't have to keep saying that through our presentation. We had blog posts. We then had our social media channels. We have 4 Facebook pages that we utilized. It was for the city, the Division of Public Safety, the Parks and Rec Department, and the downtown Facebook pages. And then the 2 Twitter feeds, which were City of Mount Pleasant and Division of Public Safety. We had slides on MAC TV, channel 188. We had the notices on our website. On the homepage, it was the rotating web graphic you see at the top. You clicked on that, that took you to the blog, and again, all the detailed information. We also had it listed under news and notices, and I would like to thank our IT department for getting on that so quickly, and especially on a Sunday when we lifted the advisory. Press releases, we sent to TV, radio, and print media throughout the state. Our Smart 911 emergency notification. Now this replaced Code Red back in December 6th of 2021. So residents had to go into www.smart911.com to do 2 things. 1, to sign up to receive emergency notifications, either by phone, text, or email, or all. And then they had the opportunity of doing a safety profile. So that's helping your first responders, if they're ever called to your house, how many people are in the house? Do you have any medical issues? That type of thing. And we'll talk more about that later. We also did personal visits. We delivered flyers. Our community information phone line, which we've had in existence since January of 2019. And that's when residents can call in 24/7 and listen to my lovely voice, have a pre-recorded announcement of whatever is the latest info that they need to know. And then we also have calls answered by city staff, which we will look at. So our city blog posts, we had more than 2,000 people share our blog posts to their social media channels. Take a look at our Facebook stats and analytics here. You see we have the 4 Facebook pages listed. For when we issued the advisory, we reached over 48,600 people. When we lifted the advisory on 9/4, we reached over 16,000. And then the number of shares when the advisory was issued was 1,372. And then on Sunday, when it was lifted, 351 people shared. Let's take a look at Twitter. And this is city and our Division of Public Safety feeds. The engagement, number of people that saw our issue tweet on 9/1 was 706 people. When it was lifted, 311 people. Now it says link clicks, advisory issued. That's when they click through to the link that we provided that gave them all the detailed information in the blog and press release. It was 307 people. And then once it was lifted, 139. Again, we had slides on MAC TV, channel 188. On our website, again, like I mentioned before, press releases to all TV, radio, and print media, and then the Smart 911. But let's make clear that people do have to sign up for Smart 911. So they do have to go in and they do have to say they would like notifications and then specify which kind. We need to thank our colleagues in the Division of Public Safety. Late Thursday night, they visited nursing homes and assisted living facilities to make sure that they got the information and that they knew that there was a boil water advisory. And then they also stopped by various apartment complexes throughout the city, and they hand-delivered more than 250 of, we call them flyers, but they were the press release giving all the directions. Our community information line, once again, that was available 24/7. And the calls that came into any of our city facilities during this time, answered by city staff, was 384 calls. Our media coverage, and I want to note this is not an inclusive list, but our newspapers, CM Life and the Morning Sun, is both print, social media, and on the website. Radio, CFX, CZY, and WCMU FM. They not only had announcements on air, but on their social media channels, as well as on their websites. And then let's take a look at TV. Again, on air, social media channels, and on their websites, TV 9 and 10, ABC 12, NBC 25, WNEM TV 5, WEYI 25, and WXYC Channel 7 down in the Detroit market had it on their social media. I'd like to thank Central Michigan District Health Department. They helped us notify the hospitals, the ERs, medical provider offices, as well as the licensed restaurants and bars in the area so they could stay open. And again, help with multiple assisted living, nursing homes, and retirement communities. Other agency Facebook shares. Again, this is not an inclusive list, but Central Dispatch shared onto their pages, the Health Department, CMU Alumni Association, the Saginaw Chippewa Indian Tribe, the Mount Pleasant Area Chamber of Commerce, and Green Tree Co-op Market. So let's talk a little bit about Smart 911. Mark Griffiths, Isabella County Emergency Management, helped us out. He ran a radio campaign, some PSAs starting on September 2nd on both CFX and CZY, total cost of $1,500. We as a city posted on our city Division of Public Safety, Parks and Rec, and downtown Facebook pages, and we continue to run a social media campaign. We have also added Smart 911 information to advisory issued and lifted communications, and then there were press releases, blogs, or social media posts. It's on our homepage of our website, and it always has been. And since November, when we first posted this, we have intermittently been posting and advertising Smart 911 and what people have to do to sign up. So let's take a look here at how many people within the city that we sent notices to on Thursday and then later on Sunday. How many people were registered? As of Thursday, 9/1, 1,190 people. 3 days later, we had 1,679 people. So an increase of 489. To kind of put in perspective, county-wide, as of 9/1, there was 3,736 people. And then September 4th, 4,504 with an increase of 768 people. I'd like to take this opportunity to not only thank city staff, but to our community partners, the Isabella County Management Department, our Central Dispatch, our Health Department, who was a great help throughout the weekend, CMU and our Saginaw Chippewa Indian Tribe, and Union Township. And I would also like to thank our part-time graphic designer, Tenley, who on Thursday evening, getting ready to go on vacation, she thought nothing of, sure, what do you need? And help with posting of the blog and all. Are there any questions?
Commissioner Asman?
I don't necessarily have a question, but I just would like to echo, your thanks to the city staff and everybody involved. I think you guys did a fantastic job.
Thank you.
I agree with that. You guys got it out as quickly as possible in as many possible ways as you could. Not only what we could do as a city, but using our community partners to make sure that everyone was able to receive this information.
Mm-hmm.
I think it also, it doesn't account for word of mouth. I picked up the phone personally and, called some people that I knew wouldn't catch the information on those sources. So, yeah, I think they did a great job.
Mm-hmm. Commissioner Bush?
I'm curious because I know there are methods that you don't necessarily have to physically sign up for, like when we get an Amber Alert on our phone, where I've never given my phone number to anybody, and will be notified. I received a lot of community concern that because it was a health issue, that perhaps that additional step could have been taken to access whatever system that is.
That,
No, you can't do that?
Oh, absolutely not.
Absolutely not. Well, not an Amber Alert, but that list of phone numbers. Like, how is that list of phone numbers even accessed? Well, how did we do it before?
You should read your cell phone contract, because in that case, you forfeit your right to give that number, or to keep that number private for that law specifically. And then there's criteria that we have to meet. And I can tell you that criteria to put out an Amber Alert is very high, and they won't do it. I mean, we've been turned down a number of times. So
What
they
about
don't.
for like weather emergencies? Because we get calls for weather emergencies.
The calls from weather emergencies would be from the EOC through Smart 911,
Okay.
or whatever it's called now.
Well, I think then and I was wondering if that was the case when it comes to these sorts of things. I'm not sure what other communities do, and obviously in 20 years of living here in Mount Pleasant, this has never happened that I'm aware of. But I think maybe us as a commission could make a goal at least to try to be more aggressive about getting more people to sign up for, if that's the method we're going to use. I think that those numbers seem really low. And I do think that it's beholden to us to perhaps be more aggressive about communicating the need to sign up for that program, because, from my experience in working in the public schools, you can't even get parents to change their phone numbers for your kids, and you're calling like 4 or 5 different numbers. And so people aren't going to go out of their way to do it. And I feel like almost we should have run a fake emergency to get people to sign up for this, because I think that you saw the increase that obviously happened in those days, but I think it needs to be a lot higher. So I'd like to brainstorm ways to do that.
I had a thought, and I emailed it in kind of late, so I don't think it got passed on, but maybe in August of every year, when we have not only new CMU students, but perhaps new workers coming into new jobs, get it out even in an extra way when we have new people coming into town.
we're looking at, we could add it to our door hangers when we do the knock and talks, as well as, which I failed to mention, in our newsletters throughout the year, we also have a feature article about Smart 911 in there too. Yeah, so that's, we just have to keep it in front of mind. And I like what everyone has said here tonight, that maybe I need to, like, every other week or every week tell 3 different people, just sign up. Because a lot of people were like, how do I not know about this? Well, they did, and they're like, oh yeah, I did, I just never got around to it. So this is a great time if we can just keep reminding them to please sign up.
I would like to recommend moving quickly in terms of while it's on people's mind. And I think a very effective way to do that would be perhaps at the farmer's market. Just boom, 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 boom. There's a pretty high attendance at the farmer's market. Also of people who are, concerned about community issues.
Commissioner Ake, did you have something?
First of all, I'm going to say thanks to the city staff, the manager descends for actually being very, very vigilant. I do think that in spite of the complaints that some of us got, we were able to forestall tragedy because of the effectiveness of, the work of, of our city staff. But also the fact that the city was testing. There were a number of, there were a number of people who started talking about the city not doing its work, and all sorts of rumors started flying. But, I kept saying, but the reason why we found out about this is because the city was doing its work. It was testing. We do need to emphasize that. So I want to commend you for the work that you have done. I realized that there was a little bit of glitch in terms of the communication to a number of people. There were people who sent me texts. They were upset that they didn't know about this. They found out through other sources. And later on, I called them to say, you have to sign up for this. So part of what we have to do is to engage in very vigorous communication, dissemination of information about how people go to sign up for this. It might also mean that we have to think about alternative ways of getting this information out, because there are some people who are not necessarily on Facebook, they don't do Twitter, they don't do, they do just ordinary phone calls. I remember that 2 people said to me, I think my information, they may have called the house line. I don't have, my cell phone is limited in terms of its capacity. So we've got to think about people who are resistant to modern technology, right? And how do we reach them? And in this case, to make sure that every resident is, reached in cases of emergencies like this. So I just want to say that you did a great work, you did great job. So I thank you, that we didn't end up in a crisis that is far worse than what we encountered. It was only 2 days or so and people were already in crisis. And when it comes to drinking water, especially after the Flint incident, and also at the same time when something was happening in Jackson, Mississippi, right? Or Jackson,
Yeah,
So
the timing was not, ideal.
exactly, it wasn't. People were really worried. So, in short, how do we make sure that this information gets to everybody? Whether or not they are on Facebook or they're just simply using landline. And, I don't know. It's work that you have to do.
Yeah, and a couple things, you have very good points. A couple things with that. Yes, we are on social media. We must be on social media. So when people say, I don't use social media, I'm not on it. My neighbor told me they saw it on social media. I'm okay with that. Because you have a good enough neighbor or a family member or a colleague that told you about it because they saw it on social media. We reached over 48,000 people just on that first post. So I'm happy with that. And you're right. Right now, we have so many different communication methods and channels available to us, a lot more than we had just 20 years ago. When it was a press release, you listened to the radio, called it good. Well, life doesn't work like that anymore. Everyone is attached to their phone, but those that aren't, we have still kind of used some of the old methods. Example 1, our community information phone line. It is like calling the weather lady that we put into effect in January of 19. I remember with City Manager Ridley was still here. We had a terrible, I think it was that terrible cold spell, and people didn't know that certain businesses and things were shut down because of the cold. So I asked IT, and once again, our heroes in IT said, here's a phone line. I'm like, okay. So since then, we have that phone line. So when in doubt, if you do know those people that are not connected, please have them call that number, 779-5320. And we have been advertising that ever since January also. It's on utility bills, it's in newsletters, it's always on Mac TV. So even if they turn on their TV, Charter Spectrum Channel 188, they will see that number there. So that's another way that we're reaching those people that just aren't ready to get onto social media. And then again, I have to thank the colleagues in DPS who went door to door for some of these complexes that had populations that would be more vulnerable to something like this, that might not have had access to the internet.
Thank you again. Thank you.
Thank you.
Director Loria, did you have something to say?
I just wanted to say that typically, well, not typically, CMU has a method of notifying the entire campus, including their students. So that notification is already in place. So it would be, I'm guessing your complaints came more from residents, versus students. So, because like I said, they already have that in place and use it quite frequently.
Yeah, CMU did send out notification. I got their notification. And I got a call from Manager Descents But then I got a lot of calls from people who were saying, did you know this was going on? How come I didn't know about this? You know I have compromised health. Oh, like, oh my God, calm down. All right, so, yeah. So, and those are the people we have to worry about, and I'm talking about, we're dealing with age demographics too. Most of the people who were calling me were not students. They were people, who prefer traditional. It's not that they don't care about technology. They just simply don't spend a lot of time with what we talk about in terms of modern technology. And, the vulnerable population that you're talking about. Thank you again.
Thank you. Yes.
Maybe I missed this, but was the Commission on Aging one of our community partners that worked on?
I don't have them on my list, but that doesn't mean that the health department
Okay.
didn't have
Okay.
communication with them, because they have a series of email distribution lists that they were using.
I would recommend them if they weren't.
I'm sure they
included.
were on, yeah.
Okay.
But myself, no, I
Okay.
did not contact them personally.
I was just going to give my aspect for it, that I live in a condo community where I'm one of the younger ones living there. So I got some bottles of water and I started knocking doors, and I didn't reach very many people. A friend with a cat, she got 2 bottles, one for her and one for the cat. But then I broke a condo rule. I put out a sign by the street that said boil water advisory. So at least people, and I'm right on a corner, a lot of people
Right.
saw it. So anyhow, that was one extra method other than texting friends.
Thank you.
Yeah.
What about the signboard in front of the fire station, the digital sign?
That cost quite a bit of money.
Yeah,
And
I
that's
know.
not immediate.
Right.
Especially when this type of incident happened after hours.
Yeah, that's true.
And so then there's no way we could have contacted a rep from there, and then we have to develop the graphic, and it is pricey.
I know it's pricey, but I wonder if they would work out some sort of deal when it comes to this type of thing. But
I'm not quite sure the turnaround on that would be
Yeah.
that quick.
still worth looking into.
I think using the radio was effective because some people heard it from the radio, and some people watching the TV heard it, all neighbors. I don't know how many text messages I sent. Well, I thought, yeah, Verizon is going to have to send me a huge bill, right? Who cares? But I did send a lot of text messages and then said, please send to your friends too, to alert them. What we have to do is, make sure that we communicate, that we do have a responsibility to our residents too, so that those of us who are able to send these kinds of messages out, absolutely, we need to do that and not simply wait for the city to, the city offices to handle everything.
All right. Well, thank you, Darcy. We appreciate the presentation.
Thank you.
I have just one last thought. The neighbors that I reached out to and the people I texted, none of them knew about it. I was very surprised. So yeah, we are definitely promoting the smart 9/11, and I think it's .com. I don't think it's
It is
.org.
it's .com,
It's .com.
yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right.
All right, now I'm going to hand this lectern over to Jason Moore, our Division Director for the Division of Public Works.
All right.
Thank you, Darcy.
Thank you.
Thank you, Darcy. Good evening, Commissioners.
Evening.
I'm going to give a presentation that explains kind of how we got to the point where we needed to have the boil water advisory. First, I'm going to give a real quick rundown of the water system. And then I'm going to talk about the turbidity exceedance that prompted the advisory. I'm going to talk about the events that led up to that turbidity exceedance and the timeline of that day. And then I'm going to talk about the changes and procedures that we've already implemented and a change that we expect to implement to make sure that this doesn't happen again. And so just a real quick rundown of the water system. The city gets its raw water from a number of well sites, kind of on the outskirts of the city, kind of on the south side. And those well sites have groundwater wells at those locations. And those pump raw water to the water treatment plant, where the water first goes through a lime softening process. And then it goes to our dual media filtration system. And that dual media is, it's a sand and anthracite bed that the water is filtered through before it leaves the treatment plant and goes to our ground storage facility, where it waits for a demand from the distribution system, and then it's pumped out to the distribution system to our customers. And so that's a real quick rundown of the water system. Now what happened was a turbidity exceedance. Now turbidity is it's the measure of the cloudiness or the clarity of the water. It's measured at the plant on a continuous basis. There's a device at the outlet for each one of the 8 filters that we have there at the plant. And then there's also a meter when that water combines to leave the plant. Now, turbidity in and of itself doesn't pose a health risk or concern. However, excess turbidity can reduce the effectiveness of chlorine, and that's what we use for our disinfectant in the system. Now, the exceedance was under 8 minutes. Normally, we run 0.03 NTU is what the turbidity is measured in. The exceedance threshold is 1.0. During the event, it peaked at 1.99. And I've got a photo of test files that show on the left there is 2 NTU, and then to the right is 10 times that, 20 NTU. And you can see that there's not a ton of difference. It's hard to tell with the naked eye. But the meters are extremely sensitive to this. And so they, like I say, they measure that on a continuous basis. And so that's the turbidity exceedance. Now, as to the events that led up to that exceedance, really it started that night, the night before Wednesday, during the plant shutdown. There was a communication error with the well site, the Deerfield well site. And so when we shut the plant down, the well site still indicated that it was running. And so the operator that night went out to check on that well site, and sure enough, those wells were running. And he shut those off and then went home for the night. Now the problem there is that because those were running after the plant was shut down, it caused an increase in water in the filter gallery at the plant. And at the time, that's not an issue, that everything's shut down for the night, so it's not going out to the storage or anything. But it did cause an issue in the morning, because when the operators start up the plant, they go through their routine. They start calling for water from the well sites. And one of the first things on the list is to get the lime softening process balanced out. And by the time they got to the filter gallery, that water, it was full at a much higher level than it usually is. And the problem there is that that excess water caused an increase in pressure and volume to go through those sand beds. And the disturbance caused that turbidity exceedance in the water. 2 of the 8 filters had excess turbidity. And that caused the reading at our combined meter. So that's the events. Now, this is a picture for some context. This is the filter gallery. And so you can see that these are fairly large. Each one of those is one of the filters. And so this morning in question, that water was probably up to the top of those interior walls. And so there was that much more pressure and volume on the beds in those sand filters when the valve was opened up to release that to the storage facility. Now, the timeline that day, basically the plant startup was 5:30 a.m. About 5:45, the filter outlets were opened, releasing this water. The exceedance started at 5:49. It ended at 5:56. About 15 minutes later, the water superintendent recognized that we had this exceedance. And at the time, it was expected that this would be a water quality issue. And so it would be at a tier 2 or a tier 3 notification level by our regulators. And that meaning that it would, we would have to put that in our water bills or at the end of the year in our consumer confidence report that we put out every year as a notification that we had this water quality issue. Now Eagle gives us 24 hours to notify them of these issues. And part of the reason they give that time frame is that there's a time of transport from the plant to the distribution system. For instance, just to get from the plant to the storage facility, that transmission main is 24-inch main. It's almost a mile long. So it takes anywhere from half an hour to an hour just to get through that initial main, where it, then it's in a storage facility that has a volume of water that's about 12 to 24 hours worth of demand for the distribution system. So there's some time there for notification. And so the water superintendent notified Eagle later that afternoon, 2:30 or so. And at that point, we realized that this had the potential to be a bigger issue than we thought. And so Eagle had some internal communications for a couple hours, and they determined that out of an abundance of caution, that they would require us to do a boil water advisory. And then, of course, an hour later, we went through all of what Darcy mentioned earlier. And so that's the timeline. Now, as far as avoidance of this in the future, we've got a couple of standard operating procedure changes that we've already made. One is to adjust that water level in the filters at the end of the night, that being the last thing that's done, so that if there was an issue with the wells and excess water there, that would be recognized as part of the shutdown process. And then the other is then to, in the morning, to again check those filter levels, the water levels in those filters before plant startup, to make sure they're at the appropriate level so that we can make those adjustments before there's an issue. And then the thing that we're going to do is change our automation, the programming of our automation that runs the plant. We can adjust that so that if there is an exceedance at that turbidity meter in the future, it can automatically shut the valve at the ground storage facility so that we can isolate that turbidity issue there and then, contact Eagle and make the determination about how to resolve that issue without having to issue an advisory again. And so those are the things that we're doing and looking to do to avoid it. So in conclusion, I just want to say that this boil water advisory was not caused by any systemic problem with the source water or the infrastructure, either at the plant or the distribution system. There was no pathogen found in the water supply out of all the testing that we did throughout this event. While the error in process had consequences for our customers citywide, subsequent actions by our staff were precisely what was required. It shows the dedication of our staff to meet the regulatory requirements that we have and provide safe water to our customers. And then finally, I'd like to reiterate that thanks to our community partners that Darcy mentioned, and also thank our water customers for the patience that they showed through this event. It was definitely appreciated. So.
Thank you, Jason.
And
We
with that,
appreciate
I'll
it.
take any questions.
Commissioner Alsager?
This is not a question, but just thanks for a job well done.
Thank you.
Commissioner Ake?
I want to echo Commissioner Alsager, but I also want to say I'm grateful because there is need for transparency. And I'm glad that you did this, that you provided us, a detailed explanation for what happened, what you did, and what we're going to do going forward. Our residents need to know. We want to be transparent about this.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Anyone else? Thank you, Jason. We appreciate everything that the staff was able to do to protect the water supply and our residents. Thank you. All right, at this time, we have a quarterly update from Jim McBride from Middle Michigan Development Corporation.
Thank you, Mayor Kirschbacher, and hope you don't mind if I have Katie Mora join me. She's Vice President of the organization, well known to many of you. The item that you all had included in the packet, this particular sheet, I wanted to go over there first, if I may. So we're really covering quarter one and quarter two here in this report, and so total company visits of 47. Now, let me just stress, and I know some of you are fairly new here to our economic development report. So these are companies that are locally in our area, and Middle Michigan Development Corporation covers Clare and Isabella counties. So company visits total were 47, but in the city of Mount Pleasant, 28 or 60% of the total. New job hires in the first 2 quarters of the year, 324 or 26 in the city of Mount Pleasant for a total of 8%, and that number is going to vary quarter to quarter. New investments, $2,958,000, of which $958,000 was in the city, or 32%. Company assists, 63. Now, let me explain that for a moment. So you'll notice company visits were 47, company assists 63, or when we talk about the city of Mount Pleasant, 28 visits or 37 assists. So in other words, at a particular call, we may be asked to help a company in more than one way. So we count that as a separate assist if we're helping them, with a state or with a request of any sort for local help, that counts as a separate assist. And then that's a total of 59%. I should also mention that when we do call on the companies in the city, Bill Merdeza is always invited to attend those, and he is able to make almost all of those if he doesn't have a conflict. So he's almost always with us. We also have a person from the state of Michigan. Typically, it's Brenda Flory, who's the local business development manager, but we've had Quentin Messer on some of these calls, and he's the president and CEO of the Michigan Economic Development Corporation. It's pretty unusual when the top guy at the state actually will call on a company with us, but it has happened. So this really covers existing companies. But on the community side of things, we also had our 5th Match on Main grant recently, and that went to Pure Vitality Juice Bar and Spa for a lot of construction that they're going to do for their interior to increase their offerings and their put a coffee bar in, right? Yeah, they're adding a coffee bar. But this is the 5th one, and so we've had 5 of these $25,000 Match on Main grants, which is very high for a community our size. I think we're one of the biggest winners in the state in terms of that program, so we're very proud of that record. Now, I mentioned that we talk a little bit about existing businesses, but we also try to attract new businesses to our area. One of the things that not everybody understands is that a lot of company decisions that are made nowadays are made by hiring site selectors. There's probably about 200 of them in the United States that are legit, maybe another 200 to 300 internationally. And these are people that are hired by the company to do the research and look at all the different locations and what the different states are offering, what the locals are offering to find that best possible place for that next location for that company. And so Governor Whitmer invited me and about 10, 12 of my colleagues back in May of this year, May 9 and 10, to go to New York City for the New York Blitz. We had people from the MEDC, and then I was one of the local partners. And I was really the only rural one there. Everybody else was either from Grand Rapids or Detroit or Lansing, Kalamazoo, and so on. So I was the one rural guy there. And these are the people we talked to. As you can read, some of these are big companies: Deloitte, Atlas Insight, Newmark. These are top site selector companies, and these are all top site selectors. They came out to meet with Governor Whitmer and myself and others to talk about opportunities here in Michigan for their clients. The one thing that I always do when I go on something like this, you can't go in when you're going to get maybe 5-10 minutes with these site selectors or have an individual conversation. So you can't talk about too much. You have to really narrow it down. What's the one thing I want them to remember? It's always the SMART zone. The Mount Pleasant SMART zone is what I stress. And we have a booklet that we've designed and we passed that out, I think, before to you. So that's what we stress every single time. And these are some of the ones. Now, not on here is some other site selectors that I just met with in the third quarter, but that's not part of this report. That'll be in the next report. Then I also passed out, we have an upcoming event here on October 7th, so you have a postcard here, Coming Home. This is not your typical job fair. This is a networking event for what we call boomerangs, people returning for the CMU football game, the homecoming game on the 8th. So we're going to be the day before on October 7th at the Marriott Courtyard. We have the whole back room rented out. We're going to have about 21 companies or entities there that are looking to hire people coming back to the area, and quite a variety. We have both of our healthcare. We have McLaren and My Michigan Health are going to be there. We have Gratiot Isabella RESD and the Clark Gladwin RESD. We have companies like Bandit and so on. So we have a lot of different employers that are looking to hire people, and so this is a mixer. The boomerangs coming back for homecoming, and also graduating seniors from Central, from Alma College. And also we're going to have some coming over from, a couple bus loads coming over from Saginaw Valley State University. You can see down here at the bottom the participating entities. We're the sponsor, we're the main sponsor of this event, Middle Michigan, but we also have Gladwin, EDC, Greater Gratiot, and Saginaw Future are joining us for this event, and they'll be busing some people over to talk to these employers. So we're really excited about this. This is going to be a great event. We did this in 2019 for the first time, learned a lot. We did that one in Mountain Town. We needed a bigger venue, so we moved it over to the courtyard. But we weren't able to do it in 2020 and 2021 because of the COVID shutdown. So we're so happy to be able to go back and do this in person. Then finally, the pitch competition. I wanted Katie, if it's okay, if Katie could talk a little bit about, because she's the one that's really been working on the pitch competition. So Katie?
Thank you. It's good to see you all this evening. Jim handed out a flyer for the downtown pitch competition, and this is something that our office has begun working on all the way back in February of this year. We started working and pulling together some of our community partners because we had been so successful with Match on Main. That wouldn't have happened if we wouldn't have had so many fantastic applications from businesses located within our downtown district. And as a result of that, we really wanted to look for additional ways to provide funding. And so the downtown pitch competition is really the result of that. On the bottom of the flyer, you'll see some of our partners and some of our sponsors who are helping to make this event a reality. We have 10 different businesses downtown who are planning to participate, who've submitted applications and draft pitches. They'll have another one that's due on the 28th of this month. It's actually quite a rigorous process for them to go through, but they all are very happy to put forward a variety of ideas that will hopefully not only enhance their business here in downtown, but also help enhance the vibrancy of our downtown district as well. With the help of our partners and our sponsors, we've been able to raise some funding to not only provide prizes to those businesses, but we also have a community vibrancy prize as well. We do have a submission for that also, taking us up to a total of 11 different submissions. And on November 9th, which is the date on the flyer that you received, we will have our top 3 businesses actually pitching their idea, as well as our community vibrancy idea being pitched as well. We'll be inviting the public to join us so that they can come and vote for their favorite, which will allow for another prize to be given as well. We're calling that our People's Choice Award. And our People's Choice Award will start out with a base of $1,000, but then we will be asking for $5 donations at the door to cast that vote and help us to decide which of those ideas is the people's choice that evening. The Michigan Economic Development Corporation has also decided that they're going to partner with Courtney Jerome Media to be able to provide social media packages as well to the top 3 businesses. So we're really excited about this. We're going to continue to do Match on Main. We actually have another round of that, which will be opening up on October 3rd. But in the meantime, we're really excited that this is another way to support a lot of really great business ideas that we saw, and also start expanding that conversation of community vibrancy and hopefully continue to inspire some ownership, not only of those of us who are doing this work every day, but also the people who live here as well. We wanted them to be a part of this because it's a lot of fun getting to see all of these fantastic ideas. And so I think that this will be a really great community event. We have a variety of ideas coming from, again, many of our downtown businesses. Our community vibrancy idea is actually from a CMU student as well. So I'm just really happy that we've had such a good variety of options that have been brought forward. And it's going to be a very difficult decision, both for our subcommittee to decide who makes it to the finals, but then also for our judges as well on the day of the event. So we wanted to make sure that you knew about this event, that this is something that many organizations locally are working very hard on, but also that you are all invited. We hope you'll join us for this event on November 9th here in the city of Mount Pleasant.
Thank you.
So if there's any questions, happy to answer them.
Any questions? No? I'm looking forward to the pitch.
Oh, yeah,
Pitch event.
absolutely. It's going to be
Yes.
great. And I'm wearing jeans tonight. I had just had hip replacement surgery not too long ago, and these don't shave quite as badly as other slacks. So that's, apologize for wearing jeans tonight, but successful surgery. So.
All right, excellent. Good.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, and thanks, Katie.
All right, this time I will ask for any additions or deletions to the agenda. Commissioner or Vice Mayor Alsager.
I have one addition from the Appointments Committee, and that could be under new business, perhaps number 20.
Okay. I would like to add prior to her addition, so I'd like mine to be number 20 and hers 21. I would like to give the appointments to the Appointments Committee tonight, prior to her appointing somebody.
Very good.
So we got appointments all over the place. All right. Is there a motion to accept the agenda? Oh,
Do we have to officially take off the public hearing too? Is that?
If I can offer, we
Yes.
will address the public hearing when we get to the public
Yes.
hearing business item.
Okay.
yes. So if I can have a motion to accept the agenda as amended.
I move.
Is there a second?
Yes, second.
All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
All those opposed, no. All right, we are going to move on to public input on the agenda items. If you are here wishing to speak about something that is on the agenda, please step forward to the podium, state your name and address, and you will be given 5 minutes to speak. If you are joining us by Zoom, you can use the raised hand feature or *9 if you're joining Zoom by phone. You will be moved into the meeting and recognized, and you'll be asked to state your name and address, and then you'll be given 5 minutes. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to step forward?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Alexander Swick. I live over at 1703 West Pickard here in town. I think you all know why I'm here this evening. Probably getting a little sick of me. But I wanted to thank the commission again for moving forward with the discussion on the proposed engine braking and noise restrictions that we've been discussing over the last few weeks here. The only thing that I want to add to all the points that have been made and all the due diligence performed by Paul, as well as Aaron and our city attorney, is that I made a conscious decision to move my family to this community. And I understand that the commission and the city as a whole has a vested interest in continuing to grow this community and attracting more young people to live here. And I can tell you personally, as someone who's like your target demographic, if you really want this city to grow and thrive and to grow a more conducive community, you have to make it more livable. You know, mowed lawns are nice, and it's nice not seeing rusted cars, you know, parked on everyone's lawn and having barking dogs, but it has to be more than that. It has to be more than just the bare minimum. We have to make a community where people can be at peace in their home, whether they live on Pickard Street or whether they live on Woodcrest or Highland. You know, all of our citizens in this city should be afforded the same rights to tranquility and a sense of, you know, wellness, in that they're not constantly having their house rattled to the foundation by, you know, a triple axle double trailer vehicle with its Jake brakes on. So that's all I'd like to say this evening. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Swift. Is there anyone else that would like to speak? Is there anyone on Zoom?
We have nobody on Zoom with us tonight.
Okay, are there any emails?
No, there are not.
All right, well, at this time, I will close the public input. Manager DeSense, can you please review the receipt of petitions and communications?
Absolutely. Receipt of petitions and communications includes the monthly report on police-related citizen complaints received, minutes of the Airport Joint Operations and Management Board from July, and minutes of the Mount Pleasant Planning Commission from August.
Thank you. Are there any items on the consent calendar that anyone would like to remove and place on the regular agenda? All right, Manager DeSense, can you please go over the consent items?
Absolutely. Consent items this evening includes approval of the minutes from the regular meeting held August 22nd, 2022. Consider appointment of voting delegate and alternate for the Michigan Municipal League 2022 Annual Convention. Consider extension to contract with Mid-Michigan Industries for municipal recycling curbside collection services. Consider professional engineering and design services contract with OHM Advisors for M20 Bridge Project for a total of $58,190. Receive Fall 2022 Saginaw Chippewa Indian Tribe 2% funding requests from city departments. Receive proposed 2023 annual operating budget and set a public hearing for November 14, 2022 on the same. Consider resolution to amend 2022 operating budget. Consider support and approval of the Mount Pleasant Area Community Foundation grant application submission for automatic CPR machines for the fire department, and consider approval of payrolls and warrants.
All right, thank you. We will move on to the public hearing. No, we need a motion. I always forget that part. I miss one meeting and I forget everything. Can I have a motion to accept the consent items as presented?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right. All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
All those opposed, no. All right, consent items have been accepted. Now we will move on to the public hearing. Manager DeSense.
Yes, so actually, we're going to ask that the City Commission cancel this evening's public hearing and set a new public hearing on the same topic for Monday, September 26th.
All right. Can we entertain a motion?
I move.
I second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Will we need a roll call for this? No? All right, all those in favor say yes.
Yes.
All those opposed, no. Motion carries. All right, we are going to move on to new business. Manager DeSense, can you please introduce the supporting the land acknowledgement statement?
Absolutely. Following direction from the City Commission, staff has worked with the Saginaw Chippewa Indian Tribe on the land acknowledgement statement presented before you this evening. The statement has been put into resolution for the City Commission's consideration and adoption. So we would bring this forward for the City Commission to consider if this is the land acknowledgement statement that you would like to use. As I said, we did work with the tribe on this one. They wanted me to pass this along, very appreciative of the city for considering such a thing.
Nice.
Does anybody have any questions? Commissioner Ake?
Not questions.
Go ahead.
I'm glad that we're doing this and that we are going to get this done before Indigenous Peoples' Day. I wonder whether there is opportunity to tweak, maybe just, textually, some.
What would you like to do?
I edit this.
Yes, but how would you like to edit it?
Okay, so for instance, whereas we acknowledge the Saginaw Chippewa Indian tribe and recognize that the three bands of Ojibwe, Saginaw, let me expand this, my vision is funny. Ojibwe, Saginaw, so the three bands of Ojibwe, do you want semicolon? I think you want colon there because you're talking about the three bands, right? Saginaw, I'll put that in parentheses. Saginaw, Black River, and Swan Creek comprise the tribe that have resided on, I don't think that we need comprise the tribe anymore. We can just simply say that, they have resided on the land for over 200 years. I just want that tightened, So can we
Yes.
work with, yes? That's, I don't want to change anything in terms of, the essence, the significance. I just want to tighten certain areas, that's all.
Okay, it's almost like you, I don't know, teach English or something.
I'm a professor of English at CMU, so I'm just, because this is going to be a public document, so we
Yes.
want to make sure that it says exactly what we want it to say, that's all.
Okay, so what you're asking is that we put in parentheses the Saginaw, Black River, and Swan Creek?
Yes, that,
Okay.
so it says, we acknowledge the Saginaw Chippewa Indian tribe and recognize that the three bands of Ojibwe, in parentheses those, have resided, so you take out comprise the tribe because it's redundant, have resided on this land for over 200 years. Does that make sense? Okay.
That does.
So in the next one, whereas our acknowledgement of the full history of the tribe and a commitment to be good stewards of these ancestral lands are, verb agreement, not is, expressions, because there are two things that we're saying, right? Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, our
expression of
expressions
gratitude.
of gratitude and appreciation to those ancestors who came before us. Shall I continue?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, oh wow, I didn't mean to do this publicly though.
That's okay.
All right, okay. Okay, so whereas we give thanks to the generous care with which the Anishinaabe and those members of the do you need the comma? Do you need a comma there?
I would have to ask my English professor that one, unfortunately. I think this has been a bit of a learning lesson.
Okay, I would say just take out the comma, and those members of the Saginaw Chippewa Indian Tribe of Michigan have given and continue to, because you don't really need a comma. I would take out a comma. All right, that's it.
Yes? Is everyone okay with it?
Yeah.
Vice Mayor
I
Alsager.
didn't want to do this
I just have
publicly.
one thought that I'm assuming this will be read at the beginning of the meetings.
Yes.
And that the first whereas, maybe you could skip that one. Just the city. Does that make sense?
What was that?
She's asking if we can take the first whereas out, if we have to say that, or can we just say the Mount Pleasant City Commission recognizes?
It's not critical, I just wondered.
Yep, I would say that that's very fair. I did offer this in the resolution format for formal adoption, but also in just a straight paragraph format as well too, which is the method that I've seen these delivered typically at the beginning of meetings, in just the paragraph format where it doesn't have all the whereas in there.
That sounds good.
Yeah, we could take out the first one and then,
Okay.
Or maybe all of them.
Well, it's taken out for our paragraph that we will read, but this is the resolution
Right.
that we'll read. All right.
I think it's well done.
Are there any concerns? Any other thoughts on this? Can we have a motion to accept it as it has been corrected?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor, say yes.
Yes.
All those opposed, no. All right, as it's been corrected, we will accept this resolution. Thank you. Okay, we're going to move on to the jake breaking. So we're going to, can you introduce that for us? I'm assuming that's
Absolutely.
the attorney is here to talk about that as well.
Yes, he is. Yes. So in your city commission packet, you will find input from Public Safety Director Paul Loria on the issue of jake breaking, and I know he can comment to that. Further input will be addressed by the city attorney, Mike Homier. And with that, if I could, I would just hand it off to the city attorney to talk about his views on a proposed ordinance.
Okay.
Good evening.
Oh. Steve, can we have that mic turned on? Try it again.
Hello,
There you go. Good.
is it working?
Kinda. Yep. No, he's got it. Just gotta put it up to your mouth so we can hear you.
Well, good evening. I'm here to talk to you about a memorandum that we drafted on jake breaks. And jake breaks are, like all noise, kind of elusive to get at, particularly in this case. And I hope you have had an opportunity to read the memorandum. I'm not going to go into all of it, except to say that we have some concerns that under the Michigan Vehicle Code, the city may not adopt an ordinance that is more stringent than the Michigan Vehicle Code. In fact, under 257-707E, there's an express preemption clause that says that the Michigan Vehicle Code occupies the whole field of regulation. That's code for you can't do anything else. And in fact, that section says, it's 707E subparagraph 2, and it says, quote, "This act occupies the whole field of vehicle noise regulation. A city, county, village, or township shall not adopt or enforce vehicle noise rules unless the rules are identical to the requirements of this act." That's important, but there are provisions under the act that you can certainly enforce. It's just difficult to do so. And it's difficult to do so because of the noise limitations under 707C, which limit the amount of noise from various vehicles. In this case, a motor vehicle with a gross weight or gross vehicle weight rating of 8,500 pounds or more, combination vehicle with gross weight or gross vehicle weight ratings of 8,500 pounds or more may have up to 90 dBA if the maximum lawful speed on the highway or street is greater than 35 miles per hour. 86 decibels if the maximum lawful speed on the highway or street is not more than 35 miles per hour, and 88 dBA under a stationary run-up test. That is the limit that has been set by the legislature under the Michigan Vehicle Code. So trying to enforce that, you would have to then use your sound meters to capture that noise coming from a Jake brake. I have no idea whether it's greater than 90 dBA. So if I asked you how much sound a Jake brake makes in terms of decibels, I don't think anybody here would know. And so that becomes the issue then, is trying to measure that in compliance then with the motor vehicle code, and then how you enforce that. And it's problematic from that standpoint. Any questions that you might have?
So in effect, you're saying to us that this is not enforceable.
Yeah, there are certainly other communities that have, you could adopt an ordinance matching that sound requirement, but it would be kind of duplicative of what already exists. So I don't really see the point in doing it. Now, I have not found, or we have not been able to find, any cases in which a municipality's Jake brake ordinance has been overturned. And there it becomes an issue of enforcement again. You could pass all the ordinances you'd like. If you don't have an opportunity to enforce them, it really doesn't matter much, right? So you would still have to use, I suppose, your sound devices to make sure that you're not trying to enforce a sound regulation that is different than what the Motor Vehicle Act imposes.
Vice Mayor Alsager?
So what can we do?
Well, you can enforce what's already on the books under the Michigan Vehicle Code, which is enforce those sound limitations that already exist. It's tricky to do it, and I'm sure Paul will tell you about that. I mean, my understanding is you have sound meters, but it's difficult because you've got ambient noise going on, and so it's a tough measurement to get at.
Well, I think last time we talked about this, I was wondering about signage, to alert the big truck drivers of a need to slow down before they actually need to slow down.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I guess,
That's the best way.
if there's a violation of the speed limit, that's obviously actionable as well. So if we're not talking about a violation of the speed limit, and the use of a Jake brake that doesn't otherwise exceed the lawful dBAs permitted by the Michigan Vehicle Code, then there's no infraction at all. It's only when you have that use of a Jake brake that exceeds that 90 dBA on a street that is in excess of 35 miles an hour. That's a violation already. But I can tell you that I don't know many of our clients in any police departments that actively enforce that because it's very hard to do.
Commissioner Bush?
I don't think it would be unprecedented for there to be an ordinance that wasn't actively enforced. And perhaps it comes down to more communication and then having that ordinance in place in case there is an issue or opportunity for communication. So that would lean more towards the option that was presented that would be communication-based. But we really can't communicate anything unless there is a specific ordinance or at least reference to the code that we want to make as a commission.
Well, you could put up like say for instance you wanted to communicate. I mean, you could put up signs that say no vehicle noise in excess of 90 dBA. I mean, that's already covered by the Michigan Vehicle Code.
Right, and that would be the kind of thing.
So you wouldn't necessarily need an ordinance in order to enforce that now. You already have that ability.
But maybe the signage would be an alert.
Right.
For
Maybe, but
voluntary
if you-
compliance.
So the problem, of course, is that even the drivers themselves, they don't know what 90 dBA sounds like either. They probably don't know whether it is or is not a violation.
But maybe it would alert them to the fact they need to start slowing down.
Yeah, I suppose. I don't know the answer to that. Like I said, if they're not exceeding the speed limit and they think using their Jake brake is going to slow their vehicle down, and they don't know that they're above 90 dBAs because they're on a road that has a posted speed limit in excess of 35 miles per hour, then I'm not sure what that achieves. I think the violation occurs if they're on a road in excess of 35 and exceed that 90 dBA. That is already a violation of the code.
But if the problem that we're trying to address really is Jake braking, why don't we just simply say, that we do have an ordinance that says you can't Jake brake at within this particular speed limit or this particular area, residential area?
It's not really an ordinance that you can't Jake brake. It's an ordinance that you cannot exceed a certain decimal.
Noise level, yes.
Yeah.
But so the complaint that came to us has to do with Jake, noise coming from Jake braking as a result of
Yes.
Jake braking. So how do we address that? I mean, the issue isn't just simply the noise, it's because the vehicle is Jake braking at a certain, within a certain area, leading to this noise. That's what the issue is.
But if it's written in terms of noise, that would be the signage that would be appropriate.
Yeah.
Director Loria, you seem to want to say something?
Yeah, I talked to several motor carrier officers, and the law is written, their whole job is commercial vehicle enforcement, not cars that you and I drive, but semis. That's what they do. They can't enforce this.
Wow.
And I have an issue doing anything more than what's already done in the law to not enforce it. Truck drivers, the drivers of these commercial motor vehicles are very in tuned to the laws and the rules as it comes to the weight of the truck, what's legal and what's not legal, logbook. It is vast. And I think doing some sort of ordinance that they know, based on just this conversation today, that we're not going to enforce or is nearly impossible to enforce, I don't see that making a big difference.
I am stumped, really.
Well,
Yes, because, I live at a place, I understand what, my friend or neighbor over there is talking about. I live at an intersection where my difficulty has to do with motorbikes. The minute they approach that point, they rev up, and I can hear it. My bedroom window is there. So, 2 a.m., somebody's revving up the motorbike, Harley Davidson or something, and I wake up. So I understand what he's saying. So how do we make this so that our residents, are not constantly, traumatized by this, kind of noise?
And I hear what you're saying. We just can't confuse the difference between loud exhaust, which is a defective equipment type thing that maybe you are experiencing, because we have, I told you what we're up over 100 tickets in the we are enforcing that because we did receive probably close to a dozen complaints about the quality of the noise or the quality of living issues, the nuisance of loud vehicle noise. We all hear it. Jake braking is a technique that is legal, that is on semis, that when it's activated, the vehicle is moving, so you have to be not only in the right place at the right time, but you have to go alongside the vehicle
Wow,
to get the measurement. So I just don't want to confuse defective exhaust versus what and lop it in the same category as exhaust braking.
Well, I hear you. I'm just simply saying noise is noise. That noise bothers him and the kids, and the other noise, defective exhaust or deliberate use of speed, creates some noise too.
If you look online at decibel ranges for Jake brakes, they estimate, and it's only an estimate, that properly maintained Jake brakes emit between 80 and 83 dBA. Now, if that's the case, it's not a violation of the Michigan Vehicle Code.
Go ahead.
So if we're going to take any action, I definitely sympathize with not wanting to create an ordinance that is toothless and won't, make any difference. But it sounds like the only option we might have available to us would be some sort of signage acknowledging that either A, you are entering a residential area, or B, a reference to the already in place Michigan ordinance. I mean, that would really only be a cost measure. It wouldn't necessarily require any enforcement or any attempted enforcement. It would just be an effort at communication. Would it be effective? I don't think we would know until we would try it, but obviously there are communities that have those signs for a reason. At least it shows like an attempt at communication.
And I think that it is something that we can try, because it's not being experienced, say, on your street. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Right.
It would be the main travel routes, i.e. Bradley, Pickard, probably Mission. And the sound still obviously carries, but it's not like you have to do, hundreds of signs on every street. So I think that you are correct in that it's not going to be this astronomical cost or task to get it, if that's what you guys decide you would like to do.
Commissioner DeSenz. Or sorry, Manager DeSenz.
One thing, just as a reminder too, to impart on this conversation, some of those roads are owned by MDOT and would require MDOT approval. And in an earlier outreach, just on the subject of Jake braking, MDOT is not very keen on having no Jake braking signs on their road because of the enforcement issues that Director Loria had discussed. But that doesn't mean that we couldn't look at other options if there's another way to just make people aware of it. Maybe it's not a sign that says, ordinance prohibiting Jake braking. Maybe it's just an awareness type thing. So we could certainly see what we can do with MDOT on some of those roads. We could also target some of the roads, obviously, that might receive truck traffic that are not MDOT roads as well, too.
Yes.
Can we formally ask staff then to create some language for a potential sign that we could propose to MDOT?
Right. I did see
Commissioner
another
Asman.
commissioner. Yeah.
So you can finish your comment if you'd like. I can wait.
I would just say, I see a few head nods, but if we could get formal directive from the city commission, probably doesn't need a motion, but I would want to know that it's a majority, obviously, if that's the route we want to take.
Commissioner Asman.
I was just going to say, can we, it sounds like, it's local traffic, trucking traffic or something like that. Have we thought, you've preached communication, could we maybe reach out to the companies in the area and just make them aware of it? That I'm sure that they would be more than willing to address that with maybe their drivers or employees or whatever. it's before we go down the sign road, I guess. So maybe we could just communicate.
I agree. I think communication is the key here. But I also agree with possibly putting up signs that say now entering a residential area kind of thing, just so that they're aware.
Sure.
You know,
I just thought maybe,
Yeah.
you know, if the communication helped, maybe we wouldn't have to go down the sign road and spend
Yeah.
money on it. Even though it would be minimal, but still,
Yeah,
it's
okay.
money.
So what does the commission feel that, how should we direct the staff at this point? Commissioner Eke?
I would like I like the idea of the staff investigating to look at possible language or exploring with MDOT also. I'm not sure whether all the trucks are owned by local, factories or businesses. So I'm not sure, since I don't have a business, so there's no way for me to know. But I'm not sure. And in the event that they are primarily local, they're still engaged, the owners may not necessarily be present when the drivers are using their jake brake. So I think it's important to do what, to follow up the suggestion that Manager DeSense was exploring. And let's look at our options. Let's look at our options. We want people who live here to be happy and not feel terrorized by noise coming from trucks, motorbikes, defunct, exhausts. People mowing at 9 p.m.
Are there any other, we have, so far there seems to be an understanding that we would like to direct the staff into investigating what we can do with MDOT to put up signage. I would also like, I agree with Commissioner Asman that I think that outreach to some of the local trucking companies, and we do have some big trucks in this area that do a lot of work around here. And I think reaching out to them is also a reasonable way to work through this. Is there any other suggestions or thoughts on this? Do you have what you need?
I think so, yes.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Excellent, thanks.
All right, we're going to move on to number 20, which was added. And at this time, I am, because we have given Commissioner Ronan excused for the rest of the year, and Vice Mayor Simon has resigned. Those were two that made up the three commission for, or the committee for the appointments. So I'm going to appoint Commissioner Asman and Commissioner Eke to the Appointments Committee.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor.
All right. I don't think I need a vote on that, right? All right, and then we're going to move on to 21, and I'm going to hand this over to Vice Mayor Alsager.
The Appointments Committee of one had one request to fill one opening with one applicant. So we're suggesting John Catlin to be appointed to the Ldfa Board. And one thing that's important to note with this nomination for him is that he works for Isabella Bank, and he's replacing someone who was on that board who was also from Isabella Bank.
Okay. All right. It's been a long time since I have had an appointment. Do we have to have a vote on that? Or as long as nobody's arm wrestling over it, we can go ahead. We need a vote, okay. All right, can I have a motion to accept John, was it Catlin?
Catlin, Catlin.
Kaplan, okay.
And John is
To-
Jon.
Okay, to the Ldfa Board. Can I have a motion for that?
I move to recommend the appointment.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right. All those,
If I could, just
Yes.
a point of order, just for clarification, I'm told it's the Ldfa Board, just to make sure that everyone's understanding that.
Oh, I said the wrong one.
Yep.
Okay, oh, I'm sorry.
What's the board
What's the
again?
board?
It is for the Ldfa.
And what does that mean?
Yeah, I'm not up on that acronym.
My apologies. Local Development Finance
Finance
Authority. Typically, they oversee industrial district, TIF districts.
Okay.
Yeah. I wrote the wrong 4-letter abbreviation.
That's okay, yeah, that's, I learned something new tonight.
Yeah.
There we
I wouldn't have
go.
learned the difference.
And we'll have work to do very soon.
all right. And can you restate your motion?
I move that we accept the recommendation to the LTF.
LDF.
LDFA.
And we have a second?
I seconded.
All right. All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
All those opposed, no? Okay. We welcome John Catlin, okay, to the LDFA. At this time, we're going to move to announcements of city-related issues and new business. Do any of the commissioners have anything that they would like to inform the public of? Commissioner Ake.
The Isabella County Human Rights Committee is hosting its annual Let Peace Reign this weekend. And it is an event that I think this is our 5th year hosting this in commemoration of peace. So anybody who is interested, committed to peace, it will be at Island Park beginning at 4 p.m. There'll be a short peace march or walk, and then we will have speakers. The mayor will be there to speak, and I believe there will be representatives from the tribe, and then, community members are also invited to speak. And then there are some activities. The event will be from 4 to 7 p.m.
Thank you.
What day is that?
Saturday, this Saturday.
The 17th.
Saturday, the 17th.
Commissioner Bush?
Saturday, the 25th, will be the Isabella County Parks and Rec Arts from Our Park event at Deerfield Park. If you haven't been before, it's a really lovely event that incorporates performing arts, visual arts, in nature. It's a whole afternoon. You can pop in just for a little bit. They always have several different activities for children, music, things to enjoy. I really think it's one of the best events in our community, and always needs a few more people attending.
And that's at Deerfield.
That's at Deerfield. Yep, it's in that back pavilion. You got to go all the way around the park, kind of almost back all the way up to the road.
Mm-hmm. Are there any announcements? All right. Is there anything the staff would like to add at this time? I'm not going to ask you, Paul. At this time, we're going to go to public comment on agenda and non-agenda items. If you wish to make a comment, please step up to the podium. You will be asked to state your name and address, and you'll be given 5 minutes. If you're joining us from Zoom, please use the raised hand feature or *9 if you're joining Zoom by phone. When you're let into the meeting, you will be recognized, and you'll state your name and your address, and you'll be given 5 minutes. Is there anyone who would like to come forward to make a comment at this time?
Hi again. I'm Alex. You all know all of my stuff. Just a couple of things that I'd like to add to the resolution that everyone's kind of discussed tonight. As far as the signage goes, as someone who's operated CDL vehicles in the past, the simplest signage that we can do, something that doesn't even necessarily have to be enforced, it's completely outside of the jurisdiction of MDOT, as long as it's on our local roads like Bradley, which is arguably one of the most problematic as it's part of the main truck route. Jake braking restricted, engine braking restricted. very simple term that anyone who's ever operated a CDL vehicle will recognize right away, and it's just a matter of switching that off. This is actually coming from the MDOT CDL handbook. It's pretty universal, though. The concept of jake braking is really only something that you need for long downgrade slopes. And unless all of these trucks are driving on the actual Mount Pleasant itself, there's not really a lot of, downgrades here in town. It's pretty flat. So jake braking is not something that gives us, a lot of additional safety in these types of conditions, especially in a very low speed area like that. That's really just something that trucks use to help slow them down on mountains, hills, things of that nature. That's my 2 cents, and I really, really can say from experience that just a little bit of signage goes a long way when it comes to communicating with truck drivers, because we're constantly looking for that kind of stuff. Speed limits, school zones, jake braking restriction signs, those are all things that we look for. So it really would do a lot to help us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone on Zoom?
No, there's not.
Okay. Well, then we will close the public comment. At this time, I will consider a motion to enter into a closed session pursuant of Section 8(1)H of the Open Meetings Act to discuss a written confidential legal opinion with the city attorney.
I move.
All right.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, what? Okay, we need a roll call.
Commissioner Bush?
Yes.
Commissioner Eke?
Yes.
Commissioner Asman?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Alsager?
Yes.
Mayor Kirschbacher?
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right. At this time, we will take a 5-minute recess. And when we come back, we will enter into closed session. Thank you.